So welcome to our Ayurveda talk. We have moved into fall, and in fall it is Vata season. And Vata is all about movement. Vata is all about ether and air elements. So we're going to take a little bit of time because I've never really talked individually about the different elements. I usually talk about all of them at the same time. But since we're moving into fall, which is Vata season. Now, fall and winter are both Vata season. So you really have 3 seasons throughout the year. You have Vata season, Kapha season, Pitta season, right? So it's not like the 4 seasons that we think of. And the elements are what rule these different doshas, which are what we're calling Vata. So Vata is a dosha, and Vata is made up of ether and air. Ether expands. Ether is, I always try to tell everybody, think about the ethers, think about space. Does space end? It does not. It goes on and on and on and on. It's infinite. It continues to expand. So when you're talking about ether, you're talking about the ability to expand, take up space. So in your body, that would relate to organs where you have space, like your bladder, like your stomach, like your large intestine. If you're a woman, it would be your uterus, okay? So those are all organs that are hollow, have hollow space, and ether tends to fill those spaces. And now air is a little bit different. Air is all about movement, and air is really important for us in yoga because that is what we are manipulating. We are manipulating the forces of air. They're called the vayus, and the vayus move in all different directions, up, down, in, out, and then they circulate around. And we are moving those subtle forces in everything that we do and the kind of conversations we get involved in. So let's say you're not sleeping at night, you have an overactive mind. One of the last things that you're going to want to do then is to stimulate the upward flow of Vyana, of the Vayus, and also Vyana. Vyana is the circulating force. So you don't want to stimulate the mind more. You want to calm it down. So you would use your yoga practice and your meditation and your pranayama to calm down and move the subtle forces down. So that's why you hear me talking about them all the time, because they're that important. And you want to think about what's going on in my life and how can I use the tools that we have with yoga and Ayurveda to serve me in the best possible way. So if you're dealing with overstimulated mind, overactive, you want to calm things down. You want to engage and move the subtle forces down. Okay. So you're doing that when you do yoga. I'm going to talk a little bit about Vata and just kind of run through the general guidelines for what happens if you find out I'm a Vata or I have a Vata imbalance. What do you do? So first of all, Vata is all about movement. It is the force behind all the movement in your body. So your heart beats because of Vata. Your blood flows because of Vata. Everything that moves is because of Vata. The wind is Vata. Okay. When you have a lot of change in your life, that's Vata. So a lot of times people will be like, I don't really get it. I'm not a Vata person at all, but I've got anxiety. I'm not sleeping. They've got all the Vata symptoms. Well, they just changed their job. They just moved. Their wife just had a baby. They have all these things happening in their life. That's movement. That is change, which is movement. And you have to adjust to those things. That's not a very settled life when you have all that change going on. That is stirring up the Vata inside your body, inside your mind, and your emotions as well. So you want to then create routine, go to bed, get your sleep, yada, yada. All right. So Vata individuals are usually very light they're more fragile, they're usually thin boned, and they have more irregularities in their actual physical structure. Those are the individuals that have the crooked smile, or one eye is bigger than the other, or one eyebrow is shaped different than the other, or the nose, and not because they got it broken, the nose is off to the side. One arm is longer. They have an extra rib. You know, those kinds of things. Irregularities, asymmetries. It's all Vata. So when you look at a person and they're very symmetrical, you are not looking at a Vata person. You are looking at a Pitta person. Okay, so Vata persons are going to have like, they're just a little kink off to the side. That's Vata. Here I am. I'm doing my Vata face. So I'm doing my Vata face, and Patty's like, right? It's entertaining, but that is the truth. We know people like that have kind of like just offness to their face, to their body, Vata. Okay, so they are very small, usually small framed, and they do not have a lot of muscle, so they don't usually have very good muscular tone. They can try and try and try to build it, and they can't seem to build it. They're very slight. And they oftentimes can be underweight. So they have to be careful. Although I have seen Vata individuals who are overweight that have a kapha imbalance. The other thing that happens with Vata is they don't have as much strength. They don't have as much stamina. They are much more fragile. I tell everybody, be kind to your Vata friends. They cannot help it. They were born this way. They are fragile like a butterfly. They can't help it. They easily get run down. They don't have the ability to withstand as much as other people can, other constitutions. They need more sleep. They are usually dry, right? Because think about the qualities of air and ether. They're very subtle. They're dry. They're cold, right? So that tends to dry out the skin. They don't have as much moisture. They literally don't have as much oomph. Okay, so they tend to have dry skin, roughness, poor circulation. They tend to be cold all the time. Cold hands, cold feet. They tend to move around a lot. So they're the individuals that are like constantly moving. They're constantly moving their leg. They're tapping the pencil on the table. They're, you know, always moving. They can't stop moving. They talk with their hands. They're doing this. That's Vata. They don't know how to just be still. It's very difficult for them. They are not drawn to it. That is for sure. They're also very sensitive. So if you say something to a Vata and it hurts their feelings, they will go round and round and round, and it'll affect them. And so-and-so doesn't like me. And then they start doubting themselves. It's very difficult. So not only are they physically thin-skinned, they are thin-skinned mentally and emotionally as well. They can't handle insults. They can't handle constructive criticism. They're fragile. They're sensitive. People will say sensitive, and they get put down a lot. Honestly, they get put down because they're so sensitive. And we need to not do that, because as we all get older, we are going to move into the Vata stage of life. When you're born, you're in the Kapha stage of life. Then you move into the Pitta stage, which is all about getting things done. The last stage is the Vata stage. We are all going to end up being Vata at the end of our life. If you make it to your 70s, 80s, and 90s, you are going to be more Vata, more fickle, more sensitive, thin-skinned. You have to be more careful. You just blurt things out, right? Have you been around older people? They don't hold anything back. They don't have the stamina. They don't have the strength. They don't have what it takes to just hold things in. Everything is just right on the surface. So it just comes right on out. They'll just tell you exactly how it is, okay? Like it or not. So they tend to run cold, and they get very uncomfortable actually in any extreme. So what I usually tell my Vata clients is They're like Goldilocks. They don't like it too hot. They don't like it too cold. They like it just right. They need to be more like Goldilocks. Very sensitive. And that is not a flaw. That is part of who they are. And because of their sensitivities, they are more connected to the ethers. So we'll talk about that here in a second. They also tend to not like routine, and they really, really need it. They tend to be the individuals that eat when they feel like it. They're the grazers. They eat raw food, which is the absolute worst thing for them because it causes gas and bloating, constipation. They don't like the schedules. They don't like it because they're fluttering around. They're air. They're just fluttering. And they need routine. They need structure. And the more, when they can get it, then they start realizing, oh, I really need this. But they don't like it. They're not drawn to it. They have a lot of resistance around structure. They don't like it. Okay, so they're very variable as far as their appetite. They tend to have weak digestive strength, so they constantly need to be on top of that. When they do have digestive issues, it's going to show up as gas, bloating, and constipation. They can't go. Their systems are too dry, so they need moisture. The tastes that benefit Vata the most are sweet taste, and I don't mean sugar. I mean sweet taste, foods that metabolize sweet, like dates, fruit, and meat, and ghee. Those metabolize sweet. Dairy and metabolize sweet. No, nothing cold though. You can't have anything cold. So the Vata individuals, the sweet taste, salty, and sour. Sour because it's going to engage the salivary glands and get things moving helps digestion. Salt because they tend to get dehydrated, so they need that. All right. Also activates the appetite. All right. So what they need to do is they are also move fast and they need to slow down. They tend to have insomnia. They need to make sure they're getting enough rest. They are not very good at like weight training and that kind of stuff, and they need that. They need exercise that helps them with strength. They're very drawn to movement, so they like dancing and they like all of the hot yoga classes, and they need to stay away from hot yoga. They like that though. They like all that movement. They also can be drawn to a lot of sexual activity, but that causes an excess for them. And then it depletes their vital reserves. So you really need to back off, you Vata individuals. If you're having lots and lots of sex, it's going to take you out of balance because it's depleting you. That ojas, which is your vital reserves, it is the very last thing that builds once you nourish all your other tissues. So people who walk around empty, Vata individuals, they walk around empty and exhausted and fatigued all the time. You've got to build up your vital reserves, and that takes a long time to do that. And that's because all those other tissues have to be fed first. Okay, so Vatas need to sleep more. They need to also, I would definitely recommend meditation, yoga nidra specifically. They need to make sure that they are calming themselves and having stillness every day. They're usually very loving, enthusiastic, outgoing people. They love all different kinds of people. They can have lots of different kinds of conversations. And that's because you cannot contain ether and air. There's no container to it. They're free flowing. So people who are Vata, they are usually very highly intelligent because they can think outside the box. They can come up with new ways of doing things. So they're the individuals that are great to have around when you need to look at things in another way. Vata people can do that because they're not confined. They can think outside the box. However, they tend to have issues with fear and loneliness, and they hate being alone. They like to have people around them, but the people that are around them, Vata people, have to be careful. They need to be around loving people because Vata is so sensitive. They also like lots of change, and they need to not have a lot of change. They are very scattered oftentimes, and they need to have stillness so that they can ground the mind and not be so scattered. So those are just things that are, if you are a Vata person, that you experience all the time, your whole life. But as we move into fall, we are starting to feel more Vata in the air. So if the Vata that you have inside of you, just like in the summer, Pitta gets pushed on, the fire element gets pushed on because heat pushes on it. Now Vata is getting pushed on. And because Vata is so subtle and so mobile, it's really easy to push Vata out of balance. So during the fall, during the winter, even more structure is important. Even more sleep is important. Making sure you're having nourishing foods, very important. And I would recommend having more soups because soups are going to help hydrate, nourish, cook all your foods. If you've got Vata imbalances, no raw food, nothing cold, nothing iced. You should stay away from iced stuff anyway. People don't realize it, but iced food, iced drinks, it ends up building up toxins in the system, causes a kapha imbalance. Okay, so those are just some general ways of dealing with Vata. If you've got Vata going on in your body, if you've got a Vata imbalance, and also as we move into Vata season, we need to think about being more grounded, being more stable, not having so much change. Maybe do your travel at another time of the year when Vata's not so high. Unless you're somebody that really needs movement, like if you have more kapha going on, then this would be the time of the year for you to travel. So those are just some general ideas on Vata and how to deal with Vata. We are going to be doing a Vata reducing practice tonight, and we're going to start out with a meditation. So let's get started with that. And if you have any questions about Vata or how to deal with Vata season, reach out to me so that I can support you with all the Ayurvedic principles. Okay, talk to you later, and let's get started with the practice.